Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is how self-discovery can fix emotional eating. This is part one of a 5-part series. The reason why I want to bring you this series is because self-discovery is how I fixed my emotional eating habits, and it's how I help hundreds of other women fix their emotional eating habits too. Okay, so here's the trick. The reason why self-discovery can help you fix your struggles with food is because the last thing that we talk about in our self-discovery journey is food. And that's why it works. Yep, you will not hear me talking about food in this 5-part series until the last episode. And so because we start to build things from the ground up, we start to create a new foundation. Since some of the information I'm going to be sharing with you is all new to you, we really do have to start from scratch, which means that I'm going to have to teach you how to unlearn some of the old ideas that you've been carrying around about food for decades. Things like counting calories, tracking your points, the idea that there's a certain amount of protein, carbohydrates, and fats that you're supposed to be getting in every day, even getting in and tracking all of your steps. All of these are great scientific suggestions, and they're going to come in handy as soon as we can help you get out of your own way long enough to be able to fix the root cause of the problem so that you can stop keeping all of this new information, all of these new ideas, these new diet plans, these new tricks to the trade, and we can get all of those new ideas off the top of your old story. Because if your old story is always sitting at the bottom of your foundation, and that's what you're, putting the new stuff on top of, it's going to keep you really, really busy focusing on all of the new things, all while the root problem stays buried underneath. And the root problem is literally sitting there laughing because it's like, ha ha ha, all of these new ideas, all of these new things, new, gives the root cause of the problem basically the hiding space to be in the foundation. And because you're so busy focusing on all the new stuff on the top, the root cause of the problem gets to stay there, hidden. And so the ideas that you have to go on new diets, to try new plans, to keep really busy tracking all your calories and points and your steps actually gives the root cause of the problem more reason to stay stuck. And the root cause of your problem, is the weakest version of yourself. So when you're on the top surface here doing all this busy work, the root cause of the problem actually grows stronger. So that means that all of your efforts, which are exhausting, let's face it, it's not easy to go on diet plans. It's not easy to have to track all your calories and remember to write everything down and, focus on your food so much and then be disappointed in yourself when that didn't work. And I mean, all that stuff is hard. And so, can you imagine that all of that work is being done for the sole purpose of strengthening your weaknesses? I mean, really, if you think about it like that, you're going to be like, what am I doing? And that's exactly what I want you to feel like. I want you to open your eyes to a new level of awareness. So that way you can really kind of take a broader picture and be like, where am I focusing my attention and why am I doing this? And so that's what the self discovery is about, because you're going to start to discover new things about yourself. And so each week, we're going to unlock another piece of the puzzle so that you can walk away 5 weeks from now with some new hope and encouragement and a purpose and motivation to take 5 steps away from your past self, which will bring you 5 steps closer to your future self, the one who no longer struggles with emotional eating at all. And that's really the whole premise of what I want to explain to you is that you do not have to struggle with emotional eating at all. If I wasn't, invested in helping other people, there's 0% chance that I would be listening to a podcast for emotional eating. I wouldn't be following an influencer to help me fix emotional eating. I wouldn't be thinking about diet plans. I wouldn't have a million emails coming from recipe cards and, what to eat, what's the best way to lose belly fat, like all those things that I used to follow. I wouldn't be following them anymore because that wouldn't interest me. I would be interested in other things, new things. So if you're following like a million influencers and you're on all the diet plans and you're looking for all the tricks and the tips and all that stuff, I've always said this, and if you've listened to some of my past episodes, you'll know I love having you here. My main goal though is to help you fix the root cause of the problem so much that you actually don't have to listen to me anymore. And then you can move on to something else. And then, the new people who are looking for a new solution will come and listen, right? But I like you to go. I don't want you to stay here forever and ever and ever thinking that you have to be listening to somebody talking about emotional eating because guess what? That topic won't interest you anymore. Can you imagine? So that's really what I'd like you to invite yourself to open new space in your head for, that this could actually be finished, done and dusted, completely gone, and that you can move on to the next chapter of your life. All right, let's dive in. So here's the 5 steps that we're going to be taking during the next 5 weeks. So this today is part one. And in part one, we're going to talk about how to lose weight without focusing on weight loss. And I promise you that if you focus on what we're going to talk about in this episode, so please stay tuned here, weight will kind of naturally just go away simply because you'll be making different choices for yourself. And as you'll learn later on in the episode, weight is a symptom of an underlying problem. The human body is a perfect machine, and the body, given half the chance, will take care of itself naturally. As long as we start from a foundational space where weight loss is not the focus and we start to change directions, weight will just simply come off because you will be making better choices for yourself that align with your highest purpose, which is to just really be connected with yourself. And that way, you'll no longer want to use food to cope or to stuff things down or to comfort yourself. Like you just won't want to use food in that way anymore. And then all of your, fancy diet rules or the thoughts of like, okay, well, if I'm eating a bunch of, cheese doodles every day, like, well, that's probably not going to be the best thing for me. And so when you start to want to take care of yourself in a different way and you look at those cheese doodles and you're like, I don't even want that. Well, guess what? Your body's going to let go of the weight, period. End of story. So that's part one. That's what we'll be talking about today. Part two is going to be how to unlearn these 5 food rules if you want to stop emotional eating and reboot your mindset. So I'll be clear in saying that as long as you keep these 5 things, these 5 rules, and we'll be talking about that in the next episode, I want to kind of invite you to put this podcast here on like the subscribe button so that you're notified when the next episode's going to come up because you're going to want to listen to this. If you keep remembering these 5 rules over and over and over again, you are going to stay stuck in the old foundation. And today we're going to help you build a new foundation. So these 5 kind of food rules will not fit into your new foundation. So you're going to have to unlearn them. And then part 3 is discover what you're really craving other than food. And this is where we'll help you to start to mature your frozen emotions because we're starting to take a new journey. Some things are going to feel unfamiliar to you. And at first, you might be a little bit, freaked out. Kind of like, wow, I've never felt this way before. I've always looked at things this way. And now there's all this new stuff. And how do I learn that? So you might feel a little bit scared, right? Because it's out of your comfort zone. The thing is, though, is that everything worth anything just outside of your comfort zone. And the cool part about this is because we're going to help you start with a new foundation, and then we're also going to help you reboot your mindset. The new stuff will actually be exciting instead of scary. And that's how you're going to start to mature some of your frozen emotions. Part 4 is going to be how to change your subconscious habits so that you can stop eating your emotions. You can actually change your conscious habits. And there is a difference between your subconscious habits and your conscious habits. And we oftentimes will find our subconscious habits in the results that we're getting that are mismatched from what we say we want. So we say we want more confidence. We say we want to lose weight. We say we want to have a better life or be at peace or not be so confused all the time. But then subconsciously, we end up doing the exact opposite of what we say we want. We mix things up, we make things harder than they have to be. And essentially, we're the one thing standing in our own way. But because it's subconscious, which, as you'll learn in part 4, is a thought that's coming from below the level of your conscious awareness. And if that doesn't make sense right now, that's totally fine. We'll be going over it a few weeks from now. But whenever you're mismatched from what you say you want and what you're doing, that's when you can really think about it as being a subconscious intention. And we'll talk all about that in the 4th part of this series. And part 5 is really freedom. It's when you get to live unapologetically and free yourself from emotional eating forever. And that's when you can move on, honestly. And that would be an amazing thing if that, could happen from listening to 5 podcast episodes. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too, because most of the time we will have to work with you and coach you. Because sometimes if you can't see the invisible parts of this and you don't know how to find your subconscious habits, then coaching might be a really good fit for you. But I definitely want these 5 episodes to open up your mind to the possibilities that this is fixable, period, and that you can do it, exclamation point, and that you deserve to be free, that you deserve to live an extraordinary life, one where food does not invade every thought. Okay, let's dive in with part 1. Lose weight without focusing on weight loss. Become a forward thinker. This is where I want to start to give you permission to start to memorize a future version of yourself. As you may have heard in past episodes here of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast, you don't have to believe everything you think because a lot of your thoughts are sitting in the foundation of who you believe you are as a human being. And you won't be able to have both. For example, I used to call myself a hot mess all the time. And so if I stayed like encased in that actual identity, I'm a hot mess. Well, what does that mean? A person who's a hot mess, I mean, she can't be organized. She can't be on time. She's got to be confused all the time. She has to like lose things. She's got to like overwhelm herself. She has to like overbook her appointments so that she's late for everything and then rushing around. But she's got the best intentions. Like she wants to do better, but she just can't because she puts too many things on her plate. There's a saying that I teach my students in Crush That Food Thing Self Discovery System. If it's on your plate, it's because you've ordered it. So, because that identity, I'm a hot mess, was there, I had like a million extra things on my plate. And that was at the roots of my foundation. So, how in the world was I supposed to build a good, trusting relationship that's peaceful and kind and loving and supportive with myself when I was starting off with the foundation of I'm a hot mess? So I had to stop telling myself that. And even though at the beginning it was like, oh, well, I'm a hot mess, um, you don't have to believe everything you're thinking. And if some of your thoughts that are meant to keep you stuck are on rinse and repeat, well, you're just going to have to stop thinking them long enough to give yourself half the chance to start to make smaller promises to yourself that you can actually keep. So that way you can actually start to build a new foundational relationship with yourself. But if you're the one tripping yourself with the words, you're a hot mess, well, then you're the one thing standing in your own way. And you will not get out of your own way until you literally put a line in the sand and cross over it. And that's how we build a new foundation. The other one that I used to say a lot, and this was a foundational thought, is I'm a perfectionist. And as I've learned, perfectionism is really just fear. And there's a quote from Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. And she says something along the lines of that perfectionism is just fear, all dressed up in a fancy mink coat and high heels. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is right, because it seems so perfect. And yet it's all fear based. And so it once again, like as a perfectionist, well, what did I have to do that? I had to have a foundation where I set my expectations of myself way too high, unrealistically too high. I had to put myself on crazy diet plans where they were completely unsustainable. Like I couldn't live like that for the rest of my life. So basically, what I did was I set myself up for failure over and over and over. And so that was actually a subconscious intention, which we will talk all about in our series number 3. The idea, excuse me, that I'm fat, it was like there was nothing that I could do to change my thoughts, and sometimes I see other people that just like, I see it now so much more clearly than before that like you can really talk to yourself in such a mean way, in a way that you would never talk to anybody else. Could you imagine if like, I don't know, somebody else asked you, "Hey, how do you think I'm doing?" And you looked at that person, you was like, "Hmm, actually, you know how I think you're doing? I think you're getting old and I think you're too fat." Can you imagine saying that to somebody? But we will say that to ourselves all the time. Somebody will be like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm just getting fat and old, or I'm old and fat. Like we just describe ourselves in the meanest, meanest type of way. And then that brings on the next one, which is I'm so frustrated with myself. If that is your foundation to be frustrated with yourself and maybe have that be like 90% of the time, then you've got things backwards. It's okay to have certain levels of frustration because, sometimes we can be confused about something, and that's a really good thing because confusion is vital for learning. When you live in frustration, I will share with you that frustration is a leakage of spiritual energy. And for just the sake of just being easy with this, spiritual energy is the inner voice that you have that is nice and kind and supportive and loving and caring and good. The frustrated voice, that's your ego. That's where you are comparing and judging and shaming and blaming and guilting and regretting and living in trauma. I mean, I understand many people, and self included, have had traumatic things happen in their life. And yet, trauma is meant to be experienced. There's something on the other side of that. It is not meant to be camped out at, period. So when you tell yourself, I'm frustrated with myself, you will always get more of what you focus on. There's a gal, her name is Lisa Nichols, and I can't remember what podcast episode I heard this on, but she describes that as being something where you kind of drive up to like the drive through window, like you're going to order fries and a shake, and you're like, order up. And so when you say, I'm frustrated, it's like, order up. And then you'll get lots and lots and lots of things to be frustrated about. And remembering that frustration is a leakage of spiritual energy and your spiritual voice is your nice voice, basically that means that you're going to have your poopy pants voice running around in your head all the time, pointing fingers at you, telling you your disappointment, telling you should feel guilty and you should regret this and that. Like, that's exhausting. And that's why it's a leakage of spiritual energy, because it's exhausting having that voice rolling around your head all the time, which is why we cannot build a new version of you, a strong version, a confident version of you on top of the foundation of I'm frustrated with myself. That just doesn't work. That indicates that you have your expectations of where you're at and where you're going to meet yourself set way too high. Which brings us to the next thing about telling yourself that you have no confidence and you have no discipline and that you just know yourself so well and you can't trust yourself. Get those cookies out of my house because I cannot be trusted. That's your voice. That's your voice giving you instructions on how to treat yourself in a mean way, how to literally betray your own integrity, your best intentions, how to push yourself down instead of lift yourself up. And then tell yourself even further, and this happens often, where people will actually decide that they want to use food as a way to hurt themselves so that then they can keep themselves what they consider to be unattractive so that nobody will look at them. But the interesting thing is because you're doing that subconsciously, but it ends up being an actual, like, real thought. But the thought doesn't make sense because it's actually you hurting yourself. And that doesn't make sense. We end up um, making ourselves like convinced that we are unattractive, but we're actually unattractive to ourselves because you end up like mirroring what it is that you feel on the inside. And so all of these examples are ways that if you're trying to change, but this is your foundation, I have to say, you're actually trying to build something new on an old, weak, and shaky foundation. And the majority of the time, if you're sitting on this old foundation, your goal, your only goal in the world, instead of trying to fix those things, your only goal in the world will be weight loss. And you'll just be like, oh, well, my ultimate goal is to lose 50 pounds. And you convince yourself that if you lost that weight, that all of those things, that you wouldn't be frustrated, you'd have confidence, you wouldn't be doubting yourself, you'd trust yourself. You could, if you lose weight, then suddenly you could, I don't know, keep cookies and chips in the house and you'd be fine, as long as you lost the weight. The thing is that that's the whole problem, is that instead of actually focusing on fixing those things, the lack of confidence, the lack of self-worth, the lack of self-esteem, instead of trying to fix those things, you just convince yourself that if you lost weight, then you'd have those things. And that's just not going to work. I'm here to tell you that that is going to keep you stuck for a really, really long time because your attention is focused on your weight. And so you're not paying attention to the things that you think if you lose weight that you'll automatically get. You're not going to automatically get those things. You will get good at what you practice. And so you're really good at telling yourself you're frustrated, telling yourself you can't be trusted, telling yourself you have lack of confidence, telling yourself that, you just whatever, you're too fat, you're too old, you can't learn new things, whatever. You're good at telling yourself that stuff. So even if you go on a diet and you lose the weight, you're still going to be good at that stuff, number one. And number two, because you've told yourself that you will have all of these things that you say you want confidence, trust, self esteem, all that stuff. And because you've told yourself that the only way to get that is to lose weight. Well, once you lose the weight, because you don't know how to feel confident, you don't know how to feel good about yourself, period. You don't, then what happens is that you have to put the weight back on so that then you can tell yourself again, oh, when I lose the weight, I'll feel confident. But then you lose the weight, you still don't feel confident. Then you have to put the weight back on so you can start the cycle all over again. How many times have you done this already? 3, 5, 10? Or actually, has it been like hundreds? Really, just ask yourself, how long have you been doing the same thing? The reason why we cannot have weight loss as a goal, period, is because, like I said at the beginning of the episode, weight is a symptom of an underlying problem. And all of your underlying problems will all start with your thoughts. So, step one to building a new foundational relationship with yourself is to stop telling yourself that your number one goal is to lose weight. So, let's do this. When you're not driving or whatever and you have a moment, take a piece of paper and write down one thing that you think you will have when you lose weight. Most people, I'm gonna choose the most common thing. So most people who I speak with would agree that once you lose weight, that you will have confidence. And yet at the same time, many people that I work with, and just, again, reiterating what I said before, have already lost weight and then didn't have the confidence that they thought they would have when they lost the weight. So then they have to put the weight back on. And the thing is that just shows you that in your mind, because you're focused on weight loss and because you're saying that you will get confident when you lose the weight, but then you lose the weight and you don't get confident, that just shows you that your lack of confidence is underneath there and it's hiding out underneath the goal of losing weight. And so, whatever the root is of the reason why you don't have confidence in yourself to begin with, and maybe that started in kindergarten, I don't know, but it's under there. And in order to stay not confident, your mind will flip to like, oh, I'll just lose weight and then I'll be confident. But the root cause of the problem, right? The trigger, the trauma, the reason why you don't have confidence to begin with is all underneath in the root. And that root knows that if you just focus on this weight loss and promise yourself that you'll get confident, that root knows you're not getting confident, period. And so that's why we have to like reverse this. Instead of making weight loss your ultimate goal, we have to flip that around and we have to work on having confidence first so that then once you have confidence, you will not want to eat the foods that are keeping weight on you. You just won't. When you make having confidence your top priority, you're going to think about it. You're going to look at that bag of cheese doodles. You're going to look at that, you know, trip to the gas station to walk in and end up with a Kit Kat, whatever. You're going to look at that. You're going to look at that secret eating, that extra bite, that middle of the night refrigerator raid. Like you're going to really see that. And you're going to be like, wait, if I do this, I'm not going to feel confident. But because confidence is your first goal, you're going to be like, oh, wait, I don't want to do that because that's going to actually make me feel not confident. But confidence is my goal. So I want to feel confident. So I'm not going to do this thing that I know is going to bring me a lack of confidence. I hope that makes sense. So let's consider, what is it that having more confidence will do for you? So here are a couple of things that come to my mind when I think of having confidence. If you have confidence, you will get to free yourself from people pleasing because you won't be looking outside of yourself for your good feelings, period. If you have confidence, you probably won't be struggling with that perfectionism that we talked about before. You won't feel the need to shrink yourself to kind of be like, oh, I don't want anybody looking at me. And you won't have the desire to judge yourself or compare yourself to others or feel ashamed or guilty or regretful or even out of control. Instead, you'll start to build a relationship with yourself where you can trust yourself to care for yourself just like you would a friend, and to be kind to yourself and have your best interest at heart. Now, if your heart's going pitter patter right now and you're starting to feel a little bit nauseous, like, because that's scary. It's kind of like, but hang on, Lisa, I always get my good feelings about myself from others. And actually, I don't like to be center of attention. I don't want anybody looking at me. And, all of that is that foundation just talking. And let's acknowledge it and let's be okay with it. And let's consider that parts of the freedom that you will get if you start to build your confidence is you'll be able to have a freedom from having the all or nothing mindset that many of us who are stuck in this space get trapped in. And that's the pitter patter of your heart. You're kind of thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want anybody looking at me. And that assumes that if you actually took care of yourself, that it would attract people to look at you. And that's not even necessarily true. Most people think that other people are thinking about them way more than they actually are. And most people are not thinking about you quite as much as you think they are. And so let's go ahead and start to talk instead about how to build this foundational relationship with yourself where you can start to trust yourself and care about yourself and be kind to yourself and have your best interest at heart. Because all while you might be worried about someone else looking at you, you're using that as a great excuse and a great reason and a great way to never look at yourself. And if you're not focused on you, I don't know who is going to be. You must be focused on yourself. So, to sum it up, if you can start to grow your confidence muscle and you can start to take your idea that weight loss is going to give you confidence, what you can do is you can start to live boldly and unapologetically, because everything that you want is just on the other side of you feeling like you can't have that confidence. And so, hear me now. When you build a foundational relationship with yourself who wants to stand strongly on a foundation of confidence instead of weight loss, you will no longer put foods into your mouth that will hurt your confidence. Confidence will become your new ultimate goal. And as soon as you get a small taste of what it feels like to have confidence in yourself, you are not going to give that up to anyone or anything. Once you have a taste of your own personal power, you will not be hungry for anything else. But I do have to say, you cannot have both. You cannot have your ultimate goal be weight loss and have confidence. And you're going to have to choose one or the other. So this is the test. Write this down and write write the word weight loss down and write the word confidence down on the top of a piece of paper. And then write the words love and fear, and then put a line in the middle. Next, I want you to look at the words weight loss and circle the word loss, and then look at the word confidence. And next to that word, you can put life gain and circle the word gain, because it is a gain, right? It's something that you're gaining. You don't feel like you have confidence now. So you'll be gaining confidence. And now I want you to think about those two words, weight loss and confidence. And I want you to see which words belong on which side of the paper, the love side or the fear side. And they have to fit into one or the other. You can't say, well, they're both, Lisa. No, you can't say that. Choose. You have to make a decision. And so if I was coaching you, I would help you to see that confidence is actually on the luck side of the paper. And I hope you guessed that one. And that would leave weight loss being on the fear side of the paper. And so if you're ready to build a new foundation relationship with yourself, if you were to choose the other way around and put confidence in the fear column, um, you could just ask yourself, well, is that what I want? Do I want to be afraid of having confidence? And again, your heart might start to pitter patter because you might be like, well, confident people, they're the ones that speak up in the room and they're so loud. And I don't like to be loud and I don't like to be center of attention. That's not confidence, just so you know. Sometimes the loudest person in the room is actually the most not confident. It's not typically the loudest person in the room is typically not the most confident. So I really want you to think about this. Are you afraid of being confident because you're comparing yourself to someone else who you might think is confident, who is actually perhaps even more insecure than you are? Sometimes we can really think that you have to be a certain way, and we start to judge other people and we start to look at them and say, well, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. And so then we dim our own ability to get to know our own uniqueness. If you're feeling a little bit confused, let me simplify this for you. Confidence is going to be a muscle that you grow. If you expect that losing weight will grow your confidence, you're giving weight loss too much of a job. Because let's say that you think that the only way you can feel confident is to have a weight loss goal, but you don't know how to feel confident without the weight loss being a part of the picture. So then you go on this diet, you lose weight so that you can feel confident, but it only lasts for a minute since you really don't know how to accept that you're confident. And then you have to actually go into another place of fear, which is like, oh my gosh, can I keep the weight off? Can I do this forever? I don't even know. And so really just start to focus and think about the foundation of how it is that your thoughts sort ideas and really start to just think about it in a very simplified terms of, is this thought going to be adding like thoughts to the fear side of the column or the love side of the column? And so if you're feeling that fear side and that's building your whole foundation, I want you to think about it like if your foundation is built on all fears, then it's kind of like your house, your body is your house. So that means that your house is sitting on top of a weak and shaky foundation. And then when you get all these new ideas about diets and weight loss and how to, eat and how to exercise and whatever, it's kind of like you're putting these new windows on this old and shaky house, this old and shaky foundation. And so what happens is that when things happen in life, which they will, and you've gone through the process of trying to lose the weight and weight loss is your goal and all that stuff, but it's all fear based, what's going to happen is that those new shiny windows, in other words, the new things that you're doing, the new injections and the new pills and the new, I've got to lose 10, 15 pounds. And then you do, but you still don't have the confidence. All of that stuff is just like those new windows are going to come crashing down because they've been built on a old, weak and shaky foundation. And so every time you're going to have more of a mess to clean up, which really means that typically you're going to put on more weight than you started with. You're also going to blame yourself for being so stupid and like, how did I do this? And how did I mess this up? And this diet's so easy. Why couldn't I follow it? And you're going to be regretful that you ever started in this path to begin with. So then you're just going to be like, you know what? Forget it. I'm so tired. I'm not doing this anymore. And then you're going to get super frustrated. And then you're going to live in the all or nothing mindset. And you're going to be stuck in that nothing for quite a while where you're just like, I don't even care anymore. I can't do this anymore. It is because you've set your expectations of yourself so high, all while building, continuing to try and build on an old, weak and shaky foundation. And so we have to be able to change the thoughts that weight loss is your ultimate goal and start to focus on confidence as being your goal or you're not going to go anywhere and you're going to go round and round in circles. So, really just think about the next time that you start to set your goals for weight loss and start to recognize that every time that you gain weight and you lose weight, that it's really all part of the same one ride. Think about it like a roller coaster ride where it's like, okay, here's the tough part where I'm going to go on this diet again. I'm counting my calories. I got my new food journal, whatever, like for the thousandth time. And that's sort of like the part where you're like, click, 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 going up, going up, going up. And so then you reach the peak and you're like, oh, wow, I'm on a routine. This is really good. I know exactly what I'm going to be eating. And I'm eating on a food window and I'm intermittent fasting. And that's really helpful. And all of that stuff. And that's where you start to like round the corner where you're like, wow, this really works. And then you feel like you can see this bigger picture. But then suddenly what happens? You know what happens. You go like falling down because you went on a vacation. You had the wedding that you were losing weight for is over, or, like you've got your sights on something and then that's done. Now you've gone on the cruise, you lost 15 pounds to go on, and now you're like, woo, I am free. I'm on the other side of this. And so you start to go plummeting down really, really fast. And then there's that ricochet around the corner part. And then the roller coaster slows down a little bit. And you're like, all right, maybe things are going to be normal again. Click, 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 click. And before you turn around, you're like, "Whoop," you're right back in the front. And then the problem is you can't get up the ride because then you're just going to sit there and you're like, ho hum, nothing's happening. When do I start again? When do I get off this ride? Well, you can't. So you just have to start going back up the roller coaster thing again. And it's the same ride. And you think that all the parts are different. The part where you're clicking up and climbing, now you're losing weight on that top part. Then you're going all the way down. Woo! Now you're gaining weight on that part. Then you slow down, then you plateau. You're thinking it's all different, but it's not. It's all part of the same ride. And it's so difficult on your emotions. There is trauma on both sides of that, right? Because while you're losing weight and while you're gaining weight, it's all fear based thoughts, right? And it's never going to stop. And you know that because you've been doing this for decades already. And so that's why in this first episode here, I really want you to get to a level of awareness that convinces you that you cannot have weight loss as your ultimate goal, period. Instead, have confidence as your ultimate goal and start to grow your confidence muscle. So write this down. I am willing to give myself the opportunity to stop thinking about weight loss so that I can start thinking about growing my confidence in myself. And then you can start to practice these three things. Number one, challenge yourself to question your thoughts. At any time a thought pops into your head, ask yourself, is this thought meant to help me grow? Or is this thought meant to keep me stuck? Number two, challenge yourself to question whether your thoughts are love based or fear based. Do the exercise that we did where you draw the line down on your piece of paper and ask yourself a question about which one of those thoughts belongs to the fear based side of the page. And if it's on the fear based side of the page, tell yourself to stop thinking it because that's going to help. If you keep thinking that fear based thought, that is going to shrink your confidence, and your goal is to grow your confidence. So you remember, you can't have both. You can't be having all sorts of fear based thoughts and grow your confidence. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. And then number three is remind yourself that you get good at what you practice. So if you start to make very small, bite sized promises to yourself so that you can really start to um, connect with yourself on a more trusting level. I really want you to remind yourself that you're an independent thinker. You're the only one thinking in your own head. And so, just like Henry Ford says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. And it, one more thing, start to invite yourself to not wait to be ready for new things. Start to invite yourself to just be ready now, period. Because sometimes we can tell ourselves, well, I'll do it next week, or I'll do it next year, or I'll do it after this happens or that happens. I'll go off the diet, Lisa. Sure. I'll stop losing weight just as soon as I lose the first 10 pounds. No, stop right there. You will never be ready for anything new, period. You will choose ready. And so let's just say this. If you tell me, well, Lisa, I'll do this, what you're asking. I'll stop focusing on weight loss after I lose the first 10 pounds. Well, just do whatever you would do to lose the 10 pounds without telling yourself that your goal is weight loss, period. And so if you tell yourself, hey, I'm not going to buy this cookies or I'm not going to stop in a sandwich shop and get BLT or whatever, like, because I'd rather eat at home, n- that's trusting yourself. That's building confidence in yourself. And ultimately, it'll lead to weight loss, right? Because you're not going to be doing the things that are making you gain weight to begin with. And so just change the thoughts and settle into the routine of what you feel is actually best for you. The last thing that you can do to grow your confidence muscle is spend time with people who can value your worth and who add value to your life. If you're if you're connected with somebody who you think knows how you feel and all you're doing is cleaning, just like, "Ugh, yeah, I know how you feel. I feel like this too. I'm too old. I'm too fat. Ugh, I can't trust myself. Do you know what I did the other day? I stopped off. I bought half a dozen donuts. I don't know what the heck I was doing." Yeah. If you feel like you have somebody that you can confess these things to, and that's like your little confession buddy, just know that you're not helping that person any more than they're helping you. They're not energetically, supporting your highest self. That's just giving you a way to talk and kind of make fun of yourself. And, it's actually like growing the weakest version of yourself. And it's letting the weakest version of yourself just talk about all of the things that you're doing wrong for yourself. And so you can do better than that for yourself. And honestly, you can inspire another person to do better for themselves as well. Learn how to spend your emotional energy wisely instead of feeling like you have to put yourself down and instead of disconnecting with your best self and judging yourself and comparing yourself. Just know that all of that is a habit to strengthen the weakness of your confidence muscle. If you give yourself half of a chance and you start focusing on the things that I shared above, you'll be able to start to connect with the pieces of the puzzle that are missing from your confidence in yourself right now. And just know that self discovery is not a straightforward process. There are many twists and turns, but the most important part of this process is your willingness to choose to change the foundational relationship that you have with yourself. You cannot give to others what you don't have. So if you're busy helping others and trying to boost people's confidence and trying to help all the people in the world, whatever, just know that you might be actually using all of your energy outside of yourself, which is giving you a great opportunity to lack energy inside of yourself. And then when you're sitting alone and you're eating all the food and whatever, because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just so exhausted, just know that that's all part of you strengthening the weakness in your confidence muscle. And so we have to be able to turn this around. All right. Let's go ahead and go to our show notes. So, this week in the show notes, we have the emotional eating hunger guide still. And I think that it's a really good opportunity to start to understand what we're going to be talking about in the third part of the series, which is really your emotional cravings. And I feel like this is such an important one. I wanted to put it in the show notes again. As always, we have the mindset makeover that you can do on an independent study. We just finished a actual challenge where we did the mindset makeover as a group, and it turned out so amazing. The next opportunity for the mindset makeover as a group is going to be coming in, I think it's May. So if you want to find out more about the mindset makeover group challenge, go ahead and leave me a comment somewhere that I can find that says mindset makeover group challenge. And you can also send me a DM so that way I can go ahead and get you some information on how to sign up for that. Lastly, let me just remind you, anybody can sell you a diet plan. I want to be the one that actually gets you off of a diet plan. You don't need that diet plan. I want you to be able to crush your cravings with confidence for good. You deserve to live an extraordinary life where you don't have to think about food all the time. All right, my friends, until next time, remember to tune in on the next episode in this series, which is how to unlearn these 5 rules about food if you want to stop emotional eating, how to reboot your mindset. I will see you next time. Bye for now. All right, my beautiful friend. That brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.